Welcome to Nationalism Hour on the Think Yoruba First podcast. I am your host, Abiodun. And alongside me is my dynamic co-host, Oluwatosin.
That's right, Abiodun. We are here to ignite your spirit and celebrate the pride, strength, and vision of our Yoruba heritage with our esteemed president, Oladimeji Bolarinwa.
Every episode, we dive deep into the heart of Yoruba identity, culture, and progress, challenging ourselves to think Yoruba first in all we do. This is Nationalism Hour, where we uplift, inspire, and build a future rooted in our legacy.
So, get ready for bold conversations, powerful insights, and a call to action with the president of Think Yoruba First organization, Oladimeji Bolarinwa. Let's make history together.
Oòduà á
Oòduà á
gbè
gbè
wá
wá
o.
o.
Oh, thank you, everybody. It's a wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity, for the good job that well done by Oluwatosin and Abiodun. Thank you so much. I also want to greet every single one of us listening in the name of Olodumare, the Almighty God, for giving us the opportunity to be able to gather here again this evening. I want to greet every single one of us for your steadfastness and for always tuning in to listen to us at this hour, which we call the Nationalism Hour. This is nothing that has ever happened before in the history of nationalism when it comes to Yoruba nationalism. It is not because of the erudite ability of the speaker or the speakers or the host or the special or the intellectual sagacity of the Think Yoruba First team that has continues to give us this strength to continue to move every night, especially this time in Yoruba land, all across West Africa. But the commitment and the help that we continue to get from our people, this nationalism cannot happen without the help of our fellow Yorubas, from those that are streaming, from those that are making the flyers, from those that are helping in one way or the other, every 1 hour, and for those of us that continue to come in here working tirelessly every day and night to ensure that the message of Yoruba Renaissance, the message of Yoruba hope, continue to be in our radio wave, because it's like a radio. Thank you, everybody, once again. Once again, we greet you all in the name of Olodumare. I want to greet once again Madam Ajoke Ade. I want to greet Adetutu, Idiagba, Christy, Mr. Money, many of our brothers and sisters, comrades in the audience. I also want to greet you. Invite your friends and family as we dive deep into this exclusive episode of Nationalism Hour. Today, we are discussing a very important topic. And that important topic is the Sahel and the future of Nigeria. What is the Sahel and what is the future of Nigeria? Oluwatosin has been able to give us, and Abiodun, they've defined what the Sahel is, the countries that make up the Sahel, and I'm not going to go back and repeat what has been said. The Sahel is a particular territory which I called oftentimes ungoverned territory that stretches from all the way from Mauritania along the Atlantic coast straight down to the Indian Ocean I'm talking about to East Africa. It stretches from West Africa and goes straight into East Africa and cuts some parts of North Africa. And that's what the Sahel is. When we hear the Sahel has become very synonymous with insecurity, terrorism for the past 10, 20, 30 years in sub-Saharan Africa. And when you hear Sahelian countries, what comes to mind when we hear Sahelian countries is that most Sahelian countries, most of them are ravaged by insecurity. And what kind of insecurity are we talking about? Oftentimes, it is what we call Islamic Islamist insurgencies, where non-state actors, in the name of religion, some of them in the name of self-determination, have taken up arms against the state, and which has led to the destabilization of so many countries in this part of Africa. And unfortunately, Nigeria happens to be part and parcel of this belt called the Sahelian belt. And that is why we, especially those of us that even though we are in Nigeria, we are Nigerians, we occupy places that are not part of the Sahel geopolitically. I'm talking about if you are Yoruba, if you are Fulani, if you are Tiv, if you are Ijaw, if you are Yoruba, if you are Igbo. So those of us that are not part of the Sahelian belt. So we need to, and one way or the other, most of the things that are happening in the Sahel is currently affecting our lives. Nigeria has been battling a hardcore insurgency in the form of ISIS, in the form of Boko Haram for the past 15 years, 16 years. Almost every year we spend nothing less than 4 trillion naira. 4 trillion naira for money that should have been spent on education, that should have been spent to get medicine, to get food, to build infrastructure. For all Nigerians, is being spent to buy guns and bullets. Thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of our people have lost their lives. That people we see as fellow Nigerians, as civilians or state actors trying to combat these hydra-headed monsters in the core north with no end in sight. And we also know that the rate of coup d'etat in the Sahel has become very, very common. That's become a common place to see coup from Guinea to Niger Republic to Burkina Faso to Mali to Sudan to Central African Republic. Or we're talking about places that are outright dictatorship, like in Eritrea, you know. So you see in Sudan. So you see that places in the Sahel actually do not, most oftentimes do not have Chad, and places in the Sahel oftentimes do not have any form of democracy. It should become the wide west of Africa. And from what we've seen, it has made it almost impossible for Africa or for Sub-Saharan Africa to have any form of political or economic stability in order to build any form of prosperity. So this is the reality we face in the Sahel. And the reality is many people are not asking questions and about how does this affect Nigeria. It affects Nigeria in the sense that security triumphs any form of good road and infrastructure you want to build. We've seen the situation before, and unfortunately, there's a political dimension, there's a religious dimension, there's an ethnic dimension to the issue of the Sahel in West Africa. Some people believe that the killings where pastoralists go into sleeping villages and start killing indigenous people. Some people believe it's a Fulani agenda. Some people believe it's an Islamist agenda. Some people believe it's a regional agenda. And some people believe it's just an economic agenda, because there's been different theories that in the Sahel, there is desertification. Many pastoralists have lost the ability for them to have access to water and green grass in order to feed their cattle and camel herds. But for those of us that are conversant with history, we are here to say something else. We'll give a different dimension as regards to the issue of Sahel. The Sahel has always been the seat of many empires. The Sahel has always been like a gateway between the Ottoman world and the Arab world into Black Africa. It is that buffer. It is that place. The Sahel is a combination of Afro-Asiatic civilization. And for the past 300 to 400 years, there has been different change in what the Sahel has always been. Ever since the fall of the Mali Empire and the Songhai Empire, the reality of the Sahel has drastically changed. And what we call the Sahel has a different meaning. It has now become the bastion and seat of Islamic Puritanism. I can give different examples, especially after the Songhai Empire fell, and the Fulanis became the new overlords especially when they built the Tukolo Empire, the Masina Empire. I'm talking about the successor states of the great Songhai Empire. When they built the Sokoto Caliphate, it has always been in a state of war between indigenous people and religious Puritanists. So this is why Sahel has been in a state of chaos. There is also another dimension. Most of the Sahelian states are rich in mineral resources like uranium, gold, diamond, from Sudan to Mali, to Burkina Faso, even to Mauritania. These places are full of natural resources, which is very important in keeping the economy of Europe very sustainable. So this is one of the reasons why Sahel is what it is, and the reason why a lot of our people why a lot of our people in Africa have become pawns in the game of geopolitics, because in order to get access to these resources, a lot of non-state actors are sponsored, and which is causing for all sorts of instability in West Africa. Now, this is now where I'm going. How does it affect Nigeria? Nigeria is a country that has witnessed several coups d'etat. And we should not deceive ourselves that anything that happens in the Sahel is not surely going to affect us in Nigeria. What happened in the Songhai Empire? What happened in the Mali Empire? What happened in Ashanti Empire? What happened in Sokoto Caliphate? What happened in Kanuri Empire has always affected the different indigenous civilization in Nigeria for the past 800 to 900 years. Everything that happened to the Songhai Empire actually affected the Oyo Empire. The wars that happened in the Kanuri Empire created refugee crisis, and which made a lot of Kanuris to come and settle in the Oyo Empire. So it is very possible to see people of Yoruba origin today in 2025 who are claiming to have one or two Kanuri ancestry. You look at what happened in the Sahel, which led to the creation of the Sokoto Caliphate, the political revolutions that happened in Sahel. So the creation of the Sokoto Caliphate created a huge Hausa refugees. And the Hausa refugees moved down from that area of the Sahelian belt, and they settled in the area called Abuja today, some part of Niger State today, even some part of Lokoja, which led to the creation of the Hausa dynasty in Lokoja and the Emirates in Abuja. And it was this movement and the change of the ethnic composition and demography that actually led to the fall of the Oyo Empire, because different people with different ideas were coming into Oyo Empire, and it changed the entire structure. It changed the internal balance of the Oyo Empire. You look at the insecurity in the Southeast currently that has made a lot of Southeasterners to flee the Southeast. And many of them are coming into the Southwest, are coming into Lagos, they are coming to Ibadan, and they are still bringing the way they practice politics, their mindset, they bring it in the Southwest. And what is happening? It is causing a political and social tensions between the ever peaceful neoliberal Yoruba people and the Igbos, who think, yes, even though because of insecurity and the kind of internal insurgency that is in the Southeast, they can still continue to fight for power and resources with the indigenous Yoruba people in Nigeria. And in the Southwest, at least all of us are one Nigeria. It's just a good example. Because what is happening in the Sahel, there has been millions and millions of people that have been displaced. And it is causing huge demographic changes, which we all know, just like it happened in the 17th century, in the 18th century, in the 19th century, is going to cause non-stop chaos all across West Africa. So even we've seen, I was reading a particular news about these three states, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. They signed a memorandum of understanding with Morocco. That Morocco, they will now be using the ports of Morocco as a form of access in order to get access to the sea, to the Atlantic Ocean, for importation and of essential items, because most of the other coastal states in West Africa have done a kind of a sanction against these military-led countries in West Africa. So these are the changes that is happening in the Sahel. And the way forward, and what is actually making, and you can see last year, there was a protest in Nigeria. And in that protest, it took place more in the core north. Some people said it has political undertone, but we understand. But one thing is very synonymous with that, is very, very synonymous with that protest. As we've seen all across the Sahel and many places in Africa, many people started pledging allegiance to Russia, that Russia should come and intervene in the matters of Nigeria. And that was what happened in the core north. And this is the reason why we need to actually prepare. Because what is happening in Niger Republic, has happened in Burkina Faso, a lot of people see it as a form of revolution. And that's why you've seen that a lot of young Nigerians are seeing people like President Traore as a role model. People no longer see democracy as the holy grail of development, as the holy grail of political stability. Again, in Nigeria, this is extremely dangerous. We live in a very, very dangerous moment. We saw in 2023 that we saw young people, especially in the obedient movement, marching to the military offices in Abuja and asking the military to take over Nigeria. Why is this happening? This is happening because many people, due to the media, especially propaganda on social media, some kind of Pan-Africanist conspiracy theory, they believe that what is happening in the Sahel is a failure of leadership. And I think it's more than that. What is happening in the Sahel is because we refuse to solve the problem of 1884 Berlin West African Conference. The Berlin West African Conference exacerbated the problems in the Sahel. The Berlin West African Conference is what has turned the entire Sahel into a hot spot of terrorism. I'm going to give an example, and a good example I'm going to give is Burkina Faso and Mali. Now, there are two, I'm going to use Mali as a good example. Let me first concentrate on Mali. There are two basic parts in Mali. The first part in Mali is the Black Mali, and the second part is the what? Is the Arab Tuareg Mali and Fulani Mali. So you are going to have that, you look at Mali, how big it is, the area of Bamako, that is where you have the Barbaras, the Madinkas, that is where the seat of power is. It's closer to their black people. But you look in the north, you have the Tuaregs, you have the Fulanis, you have the Arabs. And these people do not see themselves as West Africans. The Tuaregs do not see themselves as West Africans. But by the creation of Mali, due to French imperialism, French colonialism, a lot of Tuaregs, a lot of Fulanis, a lot of Arabs that found themselves as indigenous, as Malians, as we call it. Never saw themselves as they do not see anything called they do not see the need for Malian nationalism. So it is very easy for them to be recruited into form of insurgency, active insurgency, any form of insurgency, and be joining non-state actors to declare war on Mali. So we look at Mali, for instance, as I've said, they first started with Tuareg nationalism, self-determination movement. And from there, it's metamorphosized into full-blown Islamist insurgency. People that's why you see that I've read several geopolitical experts and commentators saying that Sub-Saharan Africa is going to be the new Middle East. That Sub-Saharan Africa is going to be the new Middle East of the world. And it is true that even though Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and other terrorist organizations could not survive in the Middle East anymore, they are getting more and more. In fact, they are doing great and they are doing fine in the Sahel. Because many of the places in Sahel, there are ethnic tensions. There are historical issues between the different indigenous people all across this area. And there is a disdain that why should black people be ruling over Arabs in Mali? Because the Tuaregs do not see themselves, oftentimes, they don't see themselves as black people. And they are not black people. They see themselves as Semitic people. They see themselves as a little bit ethnically superior because they feel that they look more like Arabs. So this is the reality we find ourselves, the ethnic reality that it is not being discussed. And that's why you see that it is very, very easy to recruit. And because they believe that government is not doing, they believe that there is nothing in Mali, there is nothing in Burkina Faso that actually gives them justice. So they want to redraw the map of Africa. They want to redraw the map of Africa. I listened to the Attorney General of Plateau speak, and so Plateau State speak as regards to the killings that is happening in the Middle Belt. Look, and when he spoke extensively. He spoke explicitly. I'm talking about this man spoke just a few weeks ago, that there is an intention by some external forces to grab lands in the name of religious puritanism, in the name of ethnic supremacy. So we are looking at a slow motion genocide and expansionism. We also saw a few days ago that some Yorubas were captured, were kidnapped in the area, in the forested area of Kogi State. And they said they captured them and they caught the hands of one of the captives in the name of their own definition of Sharia law, and that they have come to bring full-blown Sharia law into Yoruba land. You can check Yoruba Times, it's there. You are going to get this news, and you can check Iroyin Oòduà. Now, these are the things that we need to pay attention to. I know the government is going to try as much as possible to censor a lot of information and tell us everything is okay. And the most dangerous, the reason why this is dangerous is that I followed the capture of the fall of Kabul. Up till 1 week before the fall of Kabul, the president of Afghanistan was still telling the people of Afghanistan that everything is okay, all is well, there is no problem. The government is on top of the situation. This is what any government in the world will do. But we, as watchers, as political commentators, as people, we need to actually understand our history, because we've seen this happen before. We've seen how Al-Qaeda took over Syria. We've seen how the Taliban took over Afghanistan. We've seen what Al-Shabaab has done in Somalia. We've seen what is happening. And we've seen that new terrorist organizations are also springing up in Kwara State. It's now so close home. There are so many Boko Haram members that are being arrested in Osun State, in Oyo State. So it is far closer to us than we think. And this is why we are trying to sensitize each other for us to understand what is going on. And my prediction is this. Nigeria is not Nigeria is not acting urgent enough. Nigeria is not acting urgent enough. Nigeria is too laid back as regards to solving this issue of terrorism. Nigeria is not doing what it needs to do. Nigeria is playing politics. The Nigerian state is trying to be politically correct. What is happening in Mali? If you look at Burkina Faso, more than 50% of Burkina Faso is controlled by non-state actors. What I mean by the entire 50% is controlled by Al-Qaeda element, ISIS element, terrorist organization. They are the ones in charge of the entire Burkina Faso. Do not let anybody deceive you. This is the reality you have in Burkina Faso. The same thing, you look at Mali, almost 40 to 50% of the country is controlled by terrorist organizations that are collecting taxes. They are even running like a quasi-state. And this is the reality. I've seen what has happened in Pakistan. Let's learn from what has happened in Afghanistan. What happened in Afghanistan between 2001 and 2015? We saw what the Western countries did. When they say, Taliban, the terrorist organization, Taliban is a terrorist organization, Taliban is a terrorist organization. That was what they made us understand. That anytime we talk about Taliban, they equate it to ISIS, to Al-Qaeda. But what happened? When the Taliban were finally used to war and full-blown brute violence to take over the entire Afghanistan, what did they do? They changed the Western media. They just looked away, and now they are now regarding the Taliban as the what? As the proper rulers of Afghanistan. This is what the world is all about. The world will move on and they will negotiate with anybody in charge. It happened in Syria, where an Al-Qaeda leader, Jolani, became the proper ruler. You saw ambassadors of Germany, ambassadors of United Kingdom, powerful countries, even till America, laughing and shaking hands with somebody they used to call a terrorist 3-4 years ago, that he was the leader, one of the leaders of Al-Qaeda. It's just like Osama bin Laden becoming the president of Syria. So anything is possible. Anything is possible. God forbid, if the late Sheikah has been able to take over the entire Northeast, maybe today, Donald Trump would have signed a peace treaty with him and said, let us move on. Nigeria and the Boko Haram come and sit down, and nobody gives a damn. We can continue to wail. Nothing is going to change because the world believes in the rule of the might. And that's why you've seen that many places in the Sahel, for the past 300 to 400 years, who rules the Sahel? It's not because of who is right, it's not because of who is wrong. It is the person with the biggest guns that rules the Sahel. And what is more dangerous is that many of these people that have taken up arms against the West African states, because they are not just fighting Mali, they are fighting Burkina Faso, they are fighting Niger Republic, they are fighting Nigeria, they are fighting Cameroon, they are fighting Sudan, they are fighting Central African Republic. Let me even shock you about Central African Republic. In Central African Republic, only 30% of Central African Republic is controlled by government forces. The rest of the Central African Republic, almost more than 50 to 60%, is controlled by what we call Islamist or terrorist organizations. This is the reality we face. And you see places like Mozambique, places like even in Uganda, places like Sudan has always been a hot flash. Places like Congo is no longer safe because of this issue of the Sahel. So we are gradually seeing the disintegration and the redrawn. The map of West Africa is being redrawn. That is the future. What can Nigeria do? Nigeria needs to declare a police action. We are fighting. We fought the civil war for 3 years in order to win the civil war. We've been fighting for the past 15 years. America fought insurgency. I know a lot of people, they are going to say, oh, let us be patriotic. Let us respect the Nigerian armed forces. Yeah, we all know that. But I want to give a good example of what Americans did in Iraq, what Americans did in Somalia. Americans did, because this is what is happening. Let me tell you something. In the next 5 minutes, I'm going to round off. Let me tell you something that these Islamist resurgences, their mindset is that they are ready to fight till eternity, till they achieve their aim, which is to create theocratic states in Nigeria, across West Africa. And we've seen that a lot of people in the core north, we've seen the way they speak on social media, we've seen the way they speak on Twitter. They are very, or X, or they are very, very sympathetic to this kind of madness that is happening in those places. They believe that democracy, the liberal, democratic, secular values cannot give Nigeria prosperity. So they are very, very sympathetic to this. They see this war by these non-state actors, that they are the victims and they are trying to restore the theocratic states that used to dominate those axes before colonialism. And that's the bitter truth. Some of them believe that if they bring back the Sokoto Caliphate, if they bring back the Islamic Empire of Borno, if they bring back the Sultanate of Damagaram, if they bring back the Tukolo Empire, if they bring back the Masina Empire, they are surely going to be able to reclaim their sovereignty. That is how they think. This is an ideology that they feed in. And unfortunately, I belong to that school of thought, just like the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, that says that buying books is better than buying bullets. But unfortunately, the Nigerian government, the Nigerian state continues to buy bullets. And we are not going to win this war. I'm not trying to say what is not, I'm not a prophet of doom. We are never going to win this war. America that was printing the billions of dollars, America ran away. America ran away in Afghanistan. America ran away after fighting for 20 years and losing tens and tens of American gun soldiers. They ran away because you are never going to win such a war. You are going to be sucking. That's why America has refused to go into Iran. That's why America has refused to go into Yemen. They've learned their lesson. And that's the bitter truth. We hope that northern Nigeria does not become another Yemen. How long are we going to spend billions? How long are we going to spend billions of petrodollars, taxes, VAT, that we're supposed to use to build universities, that we're supposed to use to build railways? How long are we going to use it to continue to build a war machine to fight an unwinnable war? Nobody has ever won an ideological war with bullets. So the future of Nigeria is to stop this. The different ethnic and the different geopolitical states, the different federating units in Nigeria need state police. That is the reality, so that we are going to be prepared. Each state in Nigeria are going to be prepared for an all-out war. The bitter truth is that Mali can collapse tomorrow, Niger Republic can collapse tomorrow, Burkina Faso can collapse tomorrow. If those states collapses tomorrow, how will Nigeria survive? That's the bitter truth. Can Nigeria go at all-out war when we have states being controlled by ISIS or Al-Qaeda elements? In the Connaught, in the Sahel, look at Libya. It is forever partitioned. Libya is forever partitioned into two, and there are ISIS, Islamic states, still controlling some places, rich in petrodollars. Nobody talks about it anymore, and people have moved on. So we need to be realistic and do the needful, which is prepare for the raining day. We need state police. We need to decentralize the policing system, and we need to focus and understand that we must not politicize security. If we politicize security, and if Nigeria finally explodes, that will be the end of indigenous African civilization, because the West Africa is the last bastion of indigenous African civilization. Thank you, everybody, once again. It's been wonderful speaking today on the Nationalism Hour.
And that wraps up another powerful episode of Nationalism Hour on the Think Yoruba First podcast. Remember, our past is our foundation, but our future is in our hands. Let's keep pushing the vision, living the values, and standing proudly as children of Oduduwa. Until next time, stay rooted, stay proud, and always think Yoruba first. Oduagbewa o.